Good evening, I'm Nic Pegg. Welcome to After Dark. This evening, two people who've put their hands up to go out to review a restaurant and who've liked the programme, we'll be contacting them to let them know that they're off for a nice meal out together to review the restaurant. Starting off this evening, trip down memory lane and a bit of nostalgia, which we like here on the programme. And joining me on the line is announcer Mark Smith, and a lot of you will remember him from More FM. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Nick. It's been a long time.
It has been a long time, and I realised just recently that you and I share a bit of common history in Palmerston North, where you were an announcer many years ago on 2XS. So let's begin the story there.
That was in 1981. 2XS opened, I think it was in June or July. I was a 16-year-old, and this new radio station launched that wasn't 2ZA, which was the local Radio New Zealand station. And it had an attitude and guys broadcasting on it that came from Radio Hauraki, which was the infamous pirate radio station in Auckland that got a land license in 1970. So there were broadcasters that came to the station that put some rock and roll onto the radio in Palmerston North, other than Radio Massey, which I'm sure you'll remember, Nick.
Yes, I do indeed. I remember a couple of the characters, actually. Like Larry Somerville was the manager, and the first time I ever went into that station was to organise a promotion for a fundraiser that a band Perfect Strangers were doing. It was was it Cyclone Bowler or something like that? But there was a cyclone on, and I walked into there, and he was doing a voiceover, and I'd never seen anybody doing a voiceover before, and he was throwing his arms around and like a wild thing. And there was also the infamous John Hogan as well, who would have been a colleague of yours too. Yes,
Hogs actually, he hired me. The station had started in 81. I was in the sixth form at Palmerston North Boys High, and we were tuned in to listen to this station. Must have been the August school holidays, so the station had been on for a little while. And I was doing sixth form SWAT for school certificate, so sitting there with a drawing board and pencils and rulers and doing some drafting, listening to the radio, and they put an ad on. Ian Watkins, the late Ian Watkins, actor, ex-blurter from many years ago, was doing a album show during the daytime, and he did a announcement saying they wanted someone to come in after school and file records. So myself and about 200 other young teenagers from local high schools applied for the job, and over some fortunate coincidences, I was the one that ended up going in and getting that job. Started off filing records because we played vinyl in those days.
We have a picture of you now doing the mid-dawn shift, I think.
Goodness me.
At 2XS, and there's a lovely old grey telephone there, the old dial one, you know?
Yeah.
And you don't have the moustache there, the trademark Mo mark.
No, I wouldn't have been able to grow one. I would have been 17 or 18. It would have been crazy. And the thing is, we did answer that phone. Like, that phone rang and you answered it. When the mic was on, there was a mute on it. The technician at that station was Alistair Ferguson, known as the Duchess. And a wonderful guy Alistair was. And, he did all sorts of wizardry with technical things. And, of course, was able to mute a telephone when the microphone was turned on. Fond memories of Palmerston North, Nick. There was great bands and formative years for my taste of music. I got a taste of new romantic and new wave music as a 16-year-old with a band there called Snatch, they were called, that played at the Clovelly, of all places. Now, you were performing in a band around that time as well.
Yeah, there was a university band, Perfect Strangers.
That's right, Perfect Strangers.
A little duo called Mr. Smack. And, and all sorts of things going on. Right, let's get back to you. You had a gig in Monaco for a while there.
Yeah, so post 2XS, I was lucky enough to get a job at Radio Hauraki. So as a 19-year-old, which was insane.
Oh, wow.
So 2XS first radio job, mid-dawns and nights, and then a nighttime job became available at Hauraki, which I applied for and was lucky enough to get. So drove up to Auckland and started broadcasting at Hauraki in 1984, and it was still at what was then Caltech's house, which was on Fanshawe Street, and was famous as the Hauraki building. It was the one that the pirate ship came, when they came in off the ship in 1969, they went into that building, land-based in 1970, and that's where I was lucky enough to become what was known as a Hauraki good guy in those days. There were the pirates, but there were good guys who went through various phases with various program directors.
Right,
And
let's.
I was
Sorry to interrupt there, Mark. Should we just move it forward to your time at More FM, which is where our viewers and listeners this evening will know you from?
Sure. Okay. So Hauraki, Monte Carlo, amazing. That was pre-stock market crash, so it was very heady days in 1987. Came back to New Zealand, worked at 89 FM, which was another Auckland radio station, but then joined the More FM group in 1991 and went to Christchurch and built the More FM radio station as the music director, working with that great crew of people. Rory Christie was the program director. Ian Harris was the manager. And some really talented people, and made some really good friends while we were there, and had a great time in Christchurch. More FM was a phenomenon. Two very, very switched-on guys that put that together were able to buy licenses at the time when you could do that, and created a small but very successful radio network over a number of years. Doug Gold was the the main forerunner with that, and made some great mainstream radio. James and Ken, they were lucky enough to get that as a duo off, ZM in those days, and they came over to More FM as the first breakfast show, and got the station launched. It was great.
Did you start off as an announcer at More FM Foundation team, and then became assistant program director while Rory was it Rory who was doing it?
I came down as the music director to Rory, and day or drive, I swapped. So I can't remember if I was doing drive first and then days, or days and then drive, however that went around. But as the music director with Rory, and we put the first playlists together. Can you remember the first song we played on the radio station?
I can't actually, because I actually joined you as a copywriter freelance about 2 or 3 days after you opened.
Right. So It was Boston's More Than a Feeling was the first station we played on it. There you go. A little bit of trivia that I didn't realise I remembered until chatting to you now. It's funny how these things happen. Yeah, so that was very, very cool, and an exciting time. Doing a startup on a station is very exciting, and then watching it grow is really cool.
So what was the transition from More FM in Christchurch? What happened next? I suppose head office for More FM was in Wellington, if you could use that word. That's where Doug and a lot of the decisions were made. Chris Muirhead was the manager in Christchurch at that time, and we decided that I should go and spend some time in Wellington, get to know how that worked. So moved to Wellington with my then wife Dawn. So we moved up to Wellington. We stayed there for about a year. The relationship ended, unfortunately, at that time, and an opportunity with More FM in Auckland, which had recently opened, came up. So they moved me to Auckland. That was in 1994. So I went to Auckland as music director and daytime announcer, and I stayed in Auckland for about 8 years with More FM from there. I remember you were very fond of your BMW Hartke. What happened to that car?
It ended up being sold, as it does. That was a keeper. It's one of those ones that you think, if you had the time and the money, you should have put away in the shed. That was a gem that I'd bought in Christchurch off Blackwell Motors, actually, and absolute beautiful car. That was known as a H23, so that was the 3 Series BMW went out of the factory off to the Hartke factory, and that's where they put in the added extras and took bits off and changed it around. As Brian May said, I'm in love with my car. On the great Queen album, I was with that car too. It was a beauty. But,
I think I had a short trip with you in that car, and once was enough for me. But you obviously never killed yourself, so you must be quite a good driver. Before we talk, just before we finish, it was one of those cars that I loved driving through the Littleton Tunnel, and because the acoustic exhaust in a tunnel sounded phenomenal. It was just one of those ones. Yeah. Before we talk about your time in Auckland and what you're doing now, I know that you've always really enjoyed your time in the production studio, and maybe you've over the years voiced some campaigns that listeners or viewers might be familiar with.
Gosh.
Sorry, you didn't know that one was coming. So, just tell us about the process of reading scripts and what it's like.
Oh, how do you describe it? It is an art that you have to train for. I believe you can have a basic understanding of reading in a script, but you've got to be able to identify and understand direction and what a writer wants from that script. Commercial reading is pretty much. What you hear is what you get, but narration is what I really enjoy doing. So I've narrated a few TV shows. I don't know if you remember, there was one called Going, Going, Gone, which was an auction show that was on TV1 for quite a while. And that was fun because it was post-production that the voiceover went in. You had to tell the story of a piece of porcelain, how it fitted into someone's life, and then the story of it going to auction and actually being sold, and trying to not be too excited when you're doing it, but to hold some excitement with the read so that the listener or viewer could actually interpret and understand what you're saying. And someone told me I had a wonderful feigned disinterest in the way that I read when it came to narration, so that I wasn't sure if that was a compliment or not.
You were the voice of the Coca-Cola Top 40 or something when you for a while?
Gosh, yeah, wow, that's a long time ago. Yeah, that was a nationwide chart show, and that was up one, down two, steady at number 4. Here's the latest from Mariah Carey. There was all that kind of. Gosh, Nick, I'd forgotten about that completely. But that's a long time ago.
Let's have a quick look now. We've got about 2 or 3 minutes left, but let's have a look at what some of the really big things that have been happening in Auckland for you. I understand that you were instrumental in bringing about the idea and the execution of the sound.
There wasn't. Yes, I was involved with it, but it was an idea from a couple of guys, Andrew Schusterman and Vaughan Hobbs, that are quite well known in the radio, and Andrew now in the TV world. Found a niche in the market that was available for another brand to move into. So it was their idea. They'd researched it and had found it, and then I was involved in making it happen with them. It was definitely a group effort. But the sound is wonderful. To take all the rubbish, blah blah, and hype out and just play great songs again on the radio is really enjoyable. We try and do that with magic as well. Whereas the sound is rock, the magic is pop. So where you'll hear Led Zeppelin on the sound, on magic you'll hear the Hollies. But we still try and present it with that same sort of no bullshit, no hype kind of presentation with it, and just respect the music. Respect what the artist was trying to achieve when they put that music together.
Well, it's been my pleasure to catch up with Mark Smith, former announcer from More FM in Christchurch, and now operations manager for Magic, which is a network show. Mark, great to catch up with you, and be good to see you in person again sometime soon.
Thanks for your time.
Well, that was Mark Smith. I'm going to take a short break now, and on the line, Blair Quain, who's coxswain for Summer Lifeboat, is going to tell us about quite a dramatic rescue they undertook last night here on After Dark.